Yes, we can start. I just have to read the meeting recording real quick. So I will do that and then I will turn it over to you, Chris.
Sounds
Um,
great.
and then I did mention that I have to leave by probably like 5:45 to go to a civic association meeting that I got triple booked to present at. So I will probably, Chris, just make you a host. That way, the recording is here so I can catch up on
Great.
any meeting minutes that I might lose from being out, but you don't have to end the meeting early. You guys can talk for as long as you need.
Fantastic.
So
Okay, thank you.
that works for everyone. Um, all right, great. So this meeting of the Barnstable Infrastructure and Energy Committee is being recorded and will be posted for future viewing on the Town of Barnstable website. Under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, anyone else desiring to make such recording or transmission must notify the chair. And seeing that there is no one else here that would be recording, I will turn it over to you, Chris.
All right. Thank you, Kelly. Could I get someone to move to start the meeting and someone to second? So I think we have a quorum today.
Yeah, I move we start our meeting.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. So first on the agenda, I know it's been a little while, but our meeting minutes from September 22nd, 2025. Did anyone have a chance to review them? And if so, does anyone have any
Yeah.
questions, comments, or edits that need to be made?
I think it was, I did read through them and we were preparing for October 9th and everything I read seemed right to me. So I moved that we accept them.
A second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Fantastic. All right. So I know the agenda's a little cookie cutter for tonight, but I had Jane reached out and we had a conversation this afternoon. And I think when Barry held the conversation last time, since we didn't have a formal meeting, we were talking about the future of this committee and what we should do next. And I think the conversation we had, Jane, that we have a lot of shared interests and I know Ron wants to do a lot more with bringing internet, high-speed internet to Barnstable. So I think we obviously still have a lot of work to do, which is exciting. But I think one of the top priorities, so we're not relying just on the same four people, is to do some recruitment. And one of the things that Jane and I talked about is perhaps strategically targeting some people that we think would be a good candidate for this role, not just somebody that wants to volunteer, but perhaps some people that have a background in this and can kind of help advance our mission and what we're doing for the town. I was thinking of drafting a letter that we could perhaps send to some folks and then open it up to the committee to see if you'd like to make any edits or additions. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
Well, Chris, if I may, I would say part of my thought was we are advisory. We've tried to be educational over the years that I've been on the committee. Sometimes it seems to be well received, sometimes not. So I was hoping that as part of what goes into that letter, we reach out to the folks like Gordon and like Sean Hogan, who seem to be most closely supported by the projects we're doing, which in my mind, they're all infrastructure. We have a very broad mandate. If you read the description,
Mhm.
I mean, we could be doing roads and all sorts of things, but I think focusing on energy efficiency and renewable energy and frankly, trying to remind people that we're in a climate emergency is part of what I would like to help with furthering education. And I think John's work with the food waste composting absolutely fits into that because of, for one thing, it's our only project that partners with the transfer station, and solid waste processing is part of our mandate, but it's tremendously important for mitigating climate change. So I think we should recruit, but I think we should recruit to priorities
Strategic.
where we can help the town the most.
Yeah, I agree.
So I talked to Sean today,
And he said that I explained sort of we were looking for some direction from the town or somehow a way to integrate what we're doing with the town to be useful. And he said he would come and he would think about it and come in the next 2 weeks. Actually, John, he said that he was meeting with a composting company tomorrow, just offhandedly. I don't know I don't know if
Interesting.
it's part of a broad strategy or not, but at some point, so I asked him if he could block out 2 weeks from now and come in. When is our next meeting? Is it in 2 weeks?
15th, yeah.
Okay,
The 15th.
I'll pin him down on that.
Yeah.
But he would be he's the person I think we should connect to. He's doing most of what he's sort of the central town connection to most of what we were thinking about. I don't know about high-speed internet, where that fits in. So Ron,
Well, it is infrastructure.
Yeah.
are
It's
there Ron,
absolutely infrastructure.
are there people on the town level who are working on that, or is it the IT department, or is it nobody, or
It came up in the digital equity plan that the town worked on with the commission. As far as members of the town, I'm not
yeah,
sure if anybody in town government or in town departments are actively working on that.
right,
I think it's mostly all coming from outside companies such as
yeah,
Comcast and that GoNet Speed and Open Cape. So
Well,
I'm
the tech
still
council is
trying
very
to
interested, but they're not municipal. They're a
right,
volunteer
right,
Cape-wide organization, but they are hugely focused on that because it underpins everything. Emergency response. I mean, everything. It's some of the towns on the Cape are in much more precarious position than we are, but ours isn't great, especially in the high season.
Mhm.
right.
okay,
So I guess so. Just we can stick on the agenda. I think it's great, Gordon, if you can pin Sean down to come to
okay,
our next meeting because I think that would be good to align our priorities, see where they need the most help, that we can kind of amplify and assist with their mission and their work. Um, but I'll try to draft a letter that we can then,
okay,
to Jane's point, to strategically send to people that we think would be a good fit for this committee. Um, but I guess in falling in line with the agenda, if we can move on to individual topics and then maybe we can dive a little bit more into our next meetings. And Kelly, do we have a set list of dates yet? I don't believe we do
No,
past.
no, not past December 15th. I actually,
Okay,
just in the outline I used to take minutes, I had noted that we will want to discuss a 2026 meeting schedule probably at
great.
the meeting on the 15th. And then also
Fantastic.
nominations for leadership should happen, unless Barry said we could do that earlier. But for the new year, we'll need to nominate a new chair and vice chair as well. But
Okay,
formally
terrific.
go through that process. Doesn't mean it wouldn't necessarily be you, Chris, but we'll have to go through that
That
process in the
sounds
new
good.
year.
Um, so then I guess if everyone can keep that in mind, if we set the 2026 schedule for meetings, if you can come with some dates that don't work for you or just look ahead as far and long as you can into the new year to see what can work. So hopefully we can pick those dates as quickly as possible to be efficient.
Yeah, I think one of the
Um,
things we have problems with is Monday holidays.
correct.
We hit quite a few Monday holidays, so we need to think about just as we're looking at each of our own individual schedules. If
Right.
we have to
John?
Yeah, I
move.
just had a thought or a comment on the scheduling. I was wondering if maybe we should consider meeting just once a month instead of twice a month. And particularly as we think about the challenge of recruiting new members, that might make that a little easier.
Mhm.
So I'm not necessarily saying that we should, I'm just sort of asking the question.
I think it depends on how we organize, which projects we pick and how we organize around them. Because if we kind of break off into
Yeah.
ones and twos working on specific issues, that may be fine. And frankly, I don't think that's a bad idea. I mean, I love getting
Mhm.
together with all of you, but it's amazing how often every other week comes
Comes
around.
around.
And, especially for people who are busier than I am with day jobs, it is a recruiting
Yeah.
issue. And if we want to diversify and continue to move towards the excellent younger members of our committee that we've been lucky to have, I think those are more likely to be people working during the day. So I, you know, like I was particularly interested in trying to find people that are affiliated with the schools and see if we could get some high school teacher or somebody like that. Anyway, I think that's a good suggestion, John, for us to think about.
Hmm.
Yeah, I agree with that
Agreed.
too. I mean, you could even do every 3 weeks if you wanted a little more. That would get you an
Yeah.
extra 5 or so meetings a year, if needed. But yeah, I agree with that.
And it
The other thing
might
I was going to
be
say,
easier to sorry, it might just be easier to skip the Monday holidays if we're doing every 3 weeks or every 4 weeks.
Right.
the other thing I was going to say is, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think you're beholden to the Mondays. You just
No.
can't host on the Thursday town council meeting unless you were given Mondays, and I don't know that. But I mean, obviously, we've had meetings on Tuesdays, we've had them on Wednesdays. So if that's something the committee also decided to select a different day of the week to make it easier, I'm sure you can also do that as well. You would just want to avoid Thursdays.
Okay.
Okay. Maybe we can discuss that then at our next meeting. Um, are there any days that people do prefer over Mondays, out of curiosity? Just a quick check before we move on.
I think Wednesday might work for me. I think I'm gonna be trying to tag along with a lot of the ad hoc Citizens Committee on Water, however that evolves, and that's a Tuesday. So Wednesdays would be better for me. Maybe.
Okay.
I mean, so far Mondays are usually good, but
Okay.
so we can't do
Does any
Thursday, and Friday is usually not a great day. So
Agreed. Does anyone else oppose a Wednesday?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, fine with me.
Okay. That's maybe we try to look at some Wednesdays then in 2 weeks. All right, so I guess next up, any updates on green communities? I did not really connect with anyone on this going into this meeting. Jane, have you heard anything
Well, I
new?
think Gordon, I think you're the one who
Gordon?
told me that the actual start date for stretch code now is not
Yes.
until January of 27. And I don't know, I haven't dug into the timing. Do we have to have approved the stretch code before we apply for the green community, or can we kind of do them simultaneously? Could we have our application for green community going in, the end of next December? It seems to me those applications were due December and June.
I think I think we could pass it in June, apply in June, and we passed the stretch code, so it's
Oh, so we can
it's a
go ahead and
policy.
apply.
Yeah, I don't think it needs to apply.
It wouldn't happen.
I'm making that up, but that's the way I would.
Well, maybe we need to ask our local folks.
I'll ask. Okay,
Um, Lisa Sullivan, right?
I'll call Lisa. Yeah,
Well, that would be, yeah. Well, that would be great.
yeah.
Excellent.
So and Sean is working with Jane a little bit to move that forward. I don't know if he's got jobs that other people could do.
Yeah, I
Um,
volunteered to be like a data mining person, and he could just point me into the direction that he needs to get the big job. The big job, as I understand it, before being able to apply is the baseline energy use. There are something like 80 buildings in the town inventory, and most of them are energy users. There's a couple outbuildings that don't have energy, but and big ones are DPW and the school system. But anyway, so I'm going to try to help with that. And I mean, I'm interested in it. And then once the baseline energy use is figured out, then, and as we go along, the places where we can put together changes to affect this 20% savings over 5 years will become apparent. And I think,
Mhm.
with if he's successful getting the solar grant, I'm not sure what the extent of that is, but there can be some very big single projects in some cases that almost do the 20%. But the requirement is to have this energy baseline, and then to part of the rollout includes an education component where staff, or in the case of the school system, students also learn about energy efficiency and renewable energy as part of the and as part of the rollout, and so do the residents. So I kind of perk up when there's an opportunity to do some education, because I think that's so important if you want to get buy-in, that people understand what's happening and how it's benefiting everybody. But
Yeah.
anyway, there's a lot of data collecting to be done.
All right. And again, maybe Sean can fill us in a little bit more
Yeah.
next week.
So it seems like Green Communities is moving forward. I'll find out whether we need the policy in place or whether we just we have to have it actually going. So
Yeah. Well, the other
Fantastic.
question I had about green communities, and it's more of a question, I don't have an answer, but I was looking at some of the other towns, particularly some of our neighboring communities, Nantucket, Dennis, Yarmouth. They all have something on their town website in different places, depending on which part of the town government puts it together. I think it's Yarmouth also has a committee that's similar to ours. It's like, I
yeah,
think they
do.
just call
Yep.
themselves the Energy Committee, but they put together a frequently asked questions page on their town website. And then I feel like it would be nice to have in writing with references and points of contact some of the issues that were contentious the night of the vote. There was some misrepresentation of what would be required once we pass the stretch code. And I think people need to be reassured, and they need to be directed to the source of the the right answer.
Mhm.
Things like historic buildings, and does this mean you can't use fossil fuels, and um, some of the other things. Oh, new construction only. If you're going to
Yeah.
renovate your house, unless it's a giant renovation, doesn't matter, doesn't count. I mean, and something that I learned today when I was looking through this stuff is actually affordable housing that's under the state affordable housing qualification has to meet the stretch energy code. And the thinking with that is whether you're a stretch energy code community or not. And the thinking with that is that that will provide the owners with lower cost on operating and maintenance, which is probably why Habitat is so excellent in this category.
Mhm. Yeah.
But I thought I'm happy to draft something like that if the committee thinks that's worthwhile, or if Sean thinks that's worthwhile. I just feel like we're going to continue to get pushback. I don't know what you think about that, Gordon, but I
Yeah.
think
Well, I probably would be the last to hear of it anyway if there was a groundswell. But I don't think so at the moment.
I think anything to curb misinformation or disinformation at one useful point would be useful. So,
well,
Yeah,
and
I was thinking if we did frequently asked questions, is we take it to the home builders and remodelers and
yeah,
say,
I agree.
we
And
want you to join with us in this project, and do you agree
yeah.
with these answers?
yeah, and the people who voted against it that were counselors, what were your concerns? That, in some cases, I think it was at the last minute, because a couple of people had told us they were voting for it and then didn't. So what was it that, that changed your mind, and can we clarify that? I just think it would be helpful going forward, like you said, Gordon, so we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Next up, John, do you have any updates on food waste?
Yes, I think coming out of last meeting, the thinking was that the next step for us would be to do a workshop with the town council. So I outlined of what we might include in a workshop. And I think we have enough to put together a decent workshop, although I think doesn't have to be terribly long. The first thing, of course, will be just reviewing all the benefits of composting, all the reasons to do it, and also why it's particularly appropriate for municipal governments to address this issue. Another thing that I thought would be helpful to include in a workshop would be to focus a little bit particularly on methane and why methane is so important in climate change. And it's also it's a little bit complicated. I don't think terribly complicated, but frequently I think misunderstood. One thing is that you often see different numbers when people compare the impact of methane versus the impact of carbon dioxide, and that's because methane is much. And Chris, I see you nodding there because you know all this. And I was actually thinking maybe you might, if you're able to attend or at least attend remotely, you might be the one to go through these issues because it gets just a little bit technical. But just in a nutshell, methane is much, much more potent than CO2 in terms of the amount of heat that it traps. However, the good news about methane is that it doesn't last as long as carbon dioxide. So if you're trying to compare the two, it really depends on what your time horizon. If you look at the impact over 100 years, then you get a number like maybe 20 times as bad. But if you look at it over the next 10 or 15 years, then it might be 80 or 90 times as bad. And I think the important point here is that if our concern is that we are approaching a real tipping point, as Jane says, if we're really in an emergency, then the short-term impact is particularly important. So I think there's a real argument that methane, when we talk about methane, we should be more talking about it as maybe 80 or 90 times more of a problem. And I think also just to review the overall importance of methane in the climate issue. So that was a second thing I thought we might put on our agenda for our workshop. I think another thing we should talk about the composting project at the Joint Base, and there I think we'd ask the folks from the county, Mark Forrest and maybe Carrie Purcell and Mike Dutton, I think are the three folks, really the three key players there. And at least maybe one of them would come in and talk about that project, even though, as I think I said at a previous meeting, it doesn't look like they're going to be
No room for us.
really looking for Barnstable's participation anytime soon. I think it's better for them to say that. And they actually said that if anything about this is going to be presented to our town council, that they'd like to be involved. So I think we can invite them, and I think that'll also provide some good background. I think we certainly would want to have Tracy or somebody from DPW come in and talk, and I think particularly address the financial questions, because of course the big concern here is short-term potential for increased cost, and maybe Tracy or someone else could talk about the ability to use the recycling grants, but also I know there's some uncertainties there, so that would be another agenda item. And then I think one thing we definitely want to really emphasize in our workshop is our proposed enhancements to the collection at the transfer station. I mean, that's really what we want to accomplish in the short term. So I think we'll make a real point to be very specific about what we're looking for there in terms of what we can do to increase collection at the transfer station. And then finally, I think we'll address commercial food waste, although a little harder to say exactly what the next step is there. But I think we want to talk about that and propose at least some limited next steps on that, because that's a big part of it, and also a part that could be addressed more quickly than household food waste. So, I think with all of that, we have enough to make a decent workshop out of it. And again, I think, but with a real focus on specific actions that we're suggesting should be taken.
John, has there been any research on return on investment of going to these municipal composting facilities? Because obviously you're cutting down on the tonnage of waste that's leaving
Yeah.
the Cape. Is there something that we could add when it comes to that?
Yeah.
I don't know of any in any particular studies there. Are you thinking, are you focused on the the just the cost of disposing of municipal solid waste versus the cost of disposing? I mean, that's fairly straightforward. We can talk about that. Where it gets more complicated as well, if we are reducing the total, if we could reduce the total amount that needs to be landfilled, then the cost of landfilling would go down.
Right.
But that, of course, that depends on everyone else doing it as
As
well.
well. Yeah.
So John, is there a state solid waste, plan for the future for the next 20 years or 10 years?
The I haven't followed this more recently, and again, this is maybe something that the county folks could address. But the um, the the state Department of Environmental Protection has said that their goal is to get all food waste, or maybe even I should say all organic material,
Hmm.
out of the municipal waste stream by 2030. Uh,
Okay.
and that's an ambitious goal, but it's certainly all of this is very much consistent with what the what the what the state's trying to do. But that's a good point. That's something that I should
Thank you.
learn little bit more about and be prepared
I'm
to do.
wondering if we have a workshop, there should be, maybe an ask for like a policy change or a resolution, that we want to set some goals or, specific things to do we need to change to get there. I was reading about New York City recently, and they banned any food waste and organic material in the garbage, but they figured it'll take 10 years, they're at 10% now, but they figure it'll
Yeah,
take 10 years before they can get closer to what, I don't know what they'll ever hope for, but
I think a good reference for the Cape, John, is that, remember that study that the county contracted? I think it was published around November of 21, something around
hmm
then. And that's where the recommendation came out to, compost anything organic that could be composted on the Cape, and
yeah,
don't send it off Cape. Um, and they had a couple pretty good summary slides for that. The other thing, I think your idea for a workshop is terrific. I think your presentation that you made a few years ago was well received. But again, a lot of the good work we do, it didn't get much follow-up. But so I think having an ask is a good idea. And I think the savings, I remember Peter Doyle was always looking at what is the cost of the food waste in our solid waste that we then
right.
ship off Cape? And the numbers that stuck in my mind was that it was around 35% of the solid waste, and it probably cost the town about 100,000 a year.
That's
Just,
what I was talking. That's what I was
Yeah.
thinking about. I think
and
you
I
mentioned
Yeah.
that
think
before,
Tracy
Jane.
would have that
well,
updated.
He
well,
would,
yeah,
yeah, he definitely would, because that was part of the conversation that we had with John probably over a year ago now at this point.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean,
And
the estimates for what percentage of municipal waste is food waste typically range about 20 to 30%. So it's a large part of it. And so you could certainly look at the total number of tons
Hmm.
that Tracy is paying to have shipped off Cape, and that's a big number. So removing food waste from that stream would save a tremendous amount of money. It would be a pretty simple calculation to do. The problem is that right now, it's surprising, but the fact of the matter is that it costs more to dispose of the food waste. The options are limited. It's Watts Family Farm can take some, but that's a whole other question as to where what whether they can grow that or what their plans are for the future. But there, what Watts charges us right now is more per ton than what it costs for just the general waste. Now, the idea is that if you were doing this at a larger scale, then those costs would go down.
Mhm.
Especially if you created a usable product, like I think they do on Martha's Vineyard.
they certainly, I mean, they certainly do, and that's it. Really surprises me that people aren't willing to just take this for free, because they certainly, you can certainly sell the product for much more. But the reality is that if you want somebody to take it, you have to pay them. I think it's about 50% more. Now it certainly seems clear to me that over the long haul, that the cost of disposing of the regular of landfilling waste or burning is going to keep going up, and that
Yes.
if you could do the food waste at scale, that the cost would go down, so that it wouldn't be too long before you get to the point that it is actually cheaper. But still, if you're Tracy running the transfer station, the fact is that if you have to raise the price of stickers by $5, people are going to complain, and that's why we need to have the town council make that decision.
Well, yeah. And it's a decision that's being made without factoring in at all that we're in a climate emergency. I mean, it's just
Right.
purely costs, which is kind
Yeah.
of the angle we went at with the green community discussion. It was like the climate change and the health aspects were just put to the
Yeah.
side. But
And
I think we could absolutely get there. And I'm involved in another discussion with the wastewater management plants across the Cape, and we're trying to figure out what's the alternative for biosolid disposal, and is there a way we can process it safely? That's an important word, safely on the Cape, so that it doesn't have contaminants and then could be used. I mean, if we made it into biochar, it would go through a very high heat process that might kill most of the worrisome components or disable the PFAS and such things. But some places is in the country use the food waste for methane generation. They deliberately do it, and then they use the methane. They put it in a container such that they can then make the methane usable. That's very complicated, I think. I don't know that we
yeah,
have
no,
all.
I think actually biodigestion is a good alternative to composting for food waste. And the big advantage of biodigestion is that there's much higher tolerance for contamination.
Yes. Yep. I
At the
agree with you.
transfer station, with household, with people voluntarily bringing their food waste in, you it's not too much of an issue, even although it has been a concern. We have had some problems with that. For a restaurant, it could be a challenge, but doable. But say, for example, you're the food court at the mall, and you have your compost bin where people can put their in where people are supposed to put their food waste. You're going to get a lot of contamination there, and one of the complaints about Black Earth is that sometimes they will reject material.
Yes.
They'll go to pick up at a restaurant, and if it's full of plastic spoons and stuff, they won't they won't take it. And that's then they have to put it in with their other trash and stuff. But it's a you know it that's a that makes it tough. And so biodigestion has a lot of benefits to it, although I think there are expenses there as well. There is a place, I think, maybe in Rhode Island or on the South Shore of Massachusetts, that is doing that, and that could be another that's another avenue certainly to explore.
I'll do it.
What about getting this on the agenda, Gordon, for a workshop? Do you have any suggestions on
Yeah, if you when we get, I think we should wait to talk to Sean and get it on, and get an outline, and then we can get it on.
Great.
the winter is a little tough because of budget meetings that go on for
Yeah.
hours. But if we start soon, I have a agenda meeting on Wednesday, so I can at least start the ball rolling.
Great.
Put the balloons out there. Okay, sounds good.
Thanks. John, thank you. That's exciting.
Sure.
And I think this builds on mine. It's climate science and climate change is my topic. I think it's kind of the perfect use of integrating it into other projects, right? As John mentioned, the methane component, I don't think it needs to necessarily be a standalone topic because if you can integrate like methane being such a potent greenhouse gas, the educational component I think is this is a great example of how I envision climate change integrating into these topics. So, um, excellent. Jane, air quality monitoring. I know we talked a little bit about that on the phone call
Yeah,
today.
I'm actually getting more and more interesting connections with national and even international efforts. There's a woman who was in the Biden White House as I think probably an energy efficiency green building advisor, but also specifically indoor air quality. And she's actually spearheaded what's now been an international proclamation that indoor air quality should be considered a basic human right. There are different challenges in different places, parts of the world where they cook indoors with kerosene or coal or whatever. That's obviously more obvious a problem than here. But even in the United States, 2 to 5 times poorer air quality indoors, and 90% of us spend 90% of our time indoors. So we are, as you know, from a health perspective, as I watch our nation's health research and public health organizations be dismantled, I think that the more that we can look at engineering the built environment to make it healthier for all of us, the more that everybody will benefit. And for example, I think most of us know that the K through 12 and maybe even the early education kids are the vectors that share the flu and the colds and whatever around the whole community. And that's not going to change, and it may get worse as people decide they don't want their family to be immunized. So if we can have healthy indoor air in schools, that's actually a major public health win for the whole town, for the whole area. And similarly, in our crowded public spaces like travel terminals or town hall, the town hall meeting room is one that I think of often. We could do better. And when you improve indoor air quality, particularly through improving ventilation, bringing down carbon dioxide, bringing up oxygen, people think better, students test better, businesses see their employees being more productive, and there's less absenteeism from illness. So it is a huge public health issue. And I just need to kind of get my thoughts together about how to again, I don't, as Chris said, I don't think it's really a standalone issue. I think it fits in beautifully with the work that Sean has done. For example, his proposal for the $42 million DOE grant that he got, which was going to involve the intermediate school, high school, and adult school. A lot of indoor air quality benefits from the proposed upgrades. So I just want to keep bringing it in as a public health win that rides on the back of the stretch energy code, frankly, because that requires energy recovery ventilation or heat recovery ventilation. So I'm not exactly sure how to format it just yet, but I think it's a very key piece. And I know that when the vote happened on October 9th, Felicia said specifically that what I said about the stretch code being not just an energy issue, but a health issue was the reason she was voting to support it. So some people are listening.
Excellent. Thanks, Jane. Ron, what about updates on high-speed internet?
Trying to figure out how to unmute here from my phone. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you.
So I don't think I've been on record since we've been on since September 27th, but Massachusetts was granted originally $147 million through the BEAD grant program. However, it appears as though now they're only going to use about 19 million of that money. I think Jane was on the Cape Cod Tech Council meeting with me last week as well. And it seems like the main thing now is some members of the Tech Council reached out on a state level to see where that money was going to go. And it sounds like they didn't get the information, that the state wasn't giving up that information. So now they're going through channels, filing complaints saying that it was, open meeting laws and open public records laws, that this information shouldn't be withheld. So it's still up in the air as to where, this money is going to go. I know that when I had looked previously, it looked like for the town of Barnstable, both Comcast and OpenCape had submitted applications to get some of that money to expand. But as of now, it sounds like there's still some uncertainty as to, one, how much, and two, where that's going to go. And it's also unclear as to why Massachusetts was awarded 147 million, and now they're only going to use about 19 million of that. So there's still a lot of information, I guess, or lack thereof of information that's not yet out there. But I know that the Tech Council is really trying to get that information released to see where that money's going. So I guess we'll have to stay tuned.
Okay, thank you, Ron.
Yep.
As far as new business, I will draft a recruitment letter that'll pass to this committee, and hopefully you have a chance to look it over, give me any suggestions, any edits, and hopefully we can get that out to a targeted group of people so we can bump up our numbers, because there's only 4 of us, and that's the minimum, obviously, for a quorum. So we'd like to boost that up. And I guess assign tasks, John, whatever else you can do for that presentation, whatever help you need, that would be fantastic. And Jane, if I can help in any way with air quality, but perhaps there's a way to get that professor from Brown to come and speak to our group. I don't know.
I think she's very, very able and interested in building, building her team internationally. She basically was very open about that at the panelist at the National Academy workshop in September. And I was just listening to a podcast, same sort of thing. So I actually look forward to meeting her. I want to meet her in person. She's a good speaker.
That would be great. That would be fantastic. And then again, if we are shifting to Wednesdays, give that some thought if you wouldn't mind before the December 15th meeting. And then if there are any go or no-go Wednesdays going forward, and then maybe we can bring it up to vote if we want to have this every 3 weeks versus twice a month. And I think that would kind of fall in line nicely with our summer schedule, where we do pull back to 1 meeting a month. So that might be the best way to go to keep it consistent. Does anyone have anything else before we
I
sign
guess I
off?
was interested in getting Gordon's ideas, not necessarily right this minute, but in the next couple meetings of, how, as we're advisory and we're talking more about, working as educators and workshops and things, is it helpful, or are you talking at the town councilor level of maybe having more than one liaison counselor work with our committees? Because I think if we can get different perspectives and answer concerns ahead of time and then incorporate the answers into our workshops, that makes it more effective. Just thinking about, it seems like when big issues come before the council, you've got to deal with so many things. It's hard to be an expert on everything. And if there was more than one counselor, maybe 2 or 3 per committee, there may be more people who have a general baseline of information and don't have to learn on the fly.
Maybe we could get in the habit of just inviting a different counselor every
Well, that's a good,
meeting or
that's a
something like
thought.
that. Just
Yeah,
come
that's a
see
thought.
what we do,
Mhm.
that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a good
Sure.
idea.
So, well, then we'll talk about it.
Good.
All right. Well, anyway, I get a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Yeah.
I can vote, but that's
All right.
Fantastic.
Have
okay.
Excellent,
have a good
everyone.
evening,
Bye.
everybody.
everybody.
Good to see
Take
you.
care,
See you
everybody.
all.